What is up, guys? Weevil YouTube here, back with another video. Now, the results of the WCQ American events are coming in, and I'm basically going to be doing deck lists on each of them. So today it's going to be the WCQ Central American winner, who ran a 6 Samurai deck. Quite unconventional for a 6 Samurai deck to win, quite strange. So I'm going to be going through his deck list to see if he ran anything particularly odd, and if that contributed to his recent success. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so this is the list. It looks pretty standard for a 6 Samurai deck, if I do say so myself, apart from perhaps the 3 compulsory evacuation devices. But as techs in the current meta, I can actually understand them, I can relate to them. So basically what he's got is the standard stuff: 3 Kagemusha, Inishi, 2 Kageki, 3 Kazan, Grandmaster, Hand, 2 Elders, Zanji, one of the only of the original 6 who's actually normally played. Maining the 2 Max C's and the triple Vega there was quite interesting, and also the Xian Squire, which I don't see too often. The triple Asceticism and the triple 6 Sam United is quite standard, as is the Searchers, the Xian Smoke Signals, Gateway, and 2 Dojos. Some people go with 3 Dojos, some people only 1, depending on how much they want to swarm. Then the spells, other spells are pretty standard. The staples: Rhoda, Monster Reborn, Book of Moon, and Heavy Storm. They usually don't run Dark Hole, since they like to swarm and they don't like to just destroy their own stuff. Plus, they can usually handle it quite easily with the likes of Inishi and other stuff like that. So his only traps are the 3 compulsory evacuation device, the 1 solemn judgment, and the 1 solemn warning. Not too bad. He probably had to remove a 2nd solemn warning in order to put in the 3rd compulsory evacuation device, in anticipation of his localized meta, whatever that may have been. So the first card we're going to be talking about is Max C, which in my opinion is a very strange card to main deck. For me, he's pretty much a side deck card and nothing else, and he looks pretty darn risky to main deck him in an event which will be populated by decks such as Dino Rabbit and Insectors, which in my opinion Max C does little or nothing against. I mean, that's just the point, isn't it? Dark Worlds, Insectors, Dino Rabbit. They're the 3 decks I can think of that he does nothing against, and fair enough, there are a few decks that he does pretty well against, such as Chaos Dragons, which I presume would be pretty common. Also Windups, Hieratic Dragons, but they're not really that common. They're not common enough to warrant putting them in the main deck, never mind the side deck. So I don't particularly understand that choice. The other thing is, of course, for a mirror match. If he was expecting to encounter a lot of other 6 Samurai decks, he would deck it as well. Also Frogs, just kind of tossing it out there, came 3rd in my nationals, so the people still do play them. So the next card that was a little bit strange is Xian Squire, but I'm going to defend this guy because in the current meta, when a lot of decks such as Dino Rabbit and Insectors are running triple Forbidden Lances, this guy is actually pretty good against Forbidden Lances. You wait until they lance, or you lance, and oh, they counter you with another lance, then you just drop this guy, and then your monster doesn't die, their monster might still die. It's pretty good. And the other thing to consider is, of course, the fact that he is a tuner. It just gives him a bit of extra options. Tuning with a warrior, for example, might give him some sort of benefit. Also, tuning with an earth monster into his Naturias. So, I mean, I could definitely think of a reason why people would main deck this guy. The only reason I'm mentioning him is because he's not particularly common. Now, his side deck also indicates that he prepared for the mirror match quite extensively, and this guy is another reason for that. Basically, if you are playing a monster with equal attack as one of your Sans, like 2 Kazans are battling off, or 2 Xians, then this guy basically means the difference between your monster living and dying. So in that regard, he is also quite useful. So next we have Effect Failure. Pretty self-explanatory though. I mean, I can understand why everyone would main Effect Failure at 2. Maining it at 3 is a little odd, but completely understandable in fairness. You're talking about the likes of Windups, Insectors, Chaos Dragons, and other annoying stuff. Not to mention now being able to Veiler the likes of Rescue Rabbit since priority is gone. So running Veiler at 3 may be a bit of a dead draw sometimes, but the fact that he has so many synchros in his extra deck means that he can use them up, normal summon them if he needs to, and sync into something useful. But for me, the best tech card that he ran in this whole event is Compulsory Evacuation Device. I have to commend him for this. Running it at 3, it could be a little risky, but in my opinion, it must have paid off. I mean, look at how much it stops in the current meta. It stops Zen mains, it stops his first turn tour guide plays, which can be really, really annoying. It stops Carrier and from them going into a wind-up loop. It stops other stall cards like Utopia. Not forgetting, in the Rabbit decks, it stops Rabbit, it stops Dolka and Lagia, and at least makes Lagia detach his 2 materials, which for you is perfectly ideal. In Chaos Dragons as well, it stops all the Chaos stuff from going off, because they're usually low on darks in the graveyard anyway, and if they special summon a Light Pulsar Dragon and you bounce it back to their hand, I mean, the amount of times people have done this to me and I've just been like, oh my god, I hate you. So, you know, I can definitely picture him doing that and being extremely annoying for people. Right, onto the extra deck. The only card that I found even remotely strange was Allied Plus' Decisive Armor. Now, I've seen this guy a couple times before in 6-9 decks, but not usually that common. The main reason people run him is because of that equation you see up there, Kageki plus Kagemusha plus Grandmaster. That is the easiest way to get him out, and that is basically one normal summon and a free special summon, although it does kind of screw up your hand. But it's not really for his effect either, it's mainly for his beastly attack points of 3300, if you need to get over something really, really tough. And that's also considering the fact that his defense points are equally as high. Nevertheless, we are going to look at the decks that this card can be potentially good against. You're talking about decks that primarily revolve around light monsters, which would be Erratic Dragons. If you use his third effect by getting rid of your hand, I'm not sure why 6 Armors would ever choose to do this. You can be completely devastating to Erratic Dragons, you can potentially OTK them. The same thing goes for Lightsworn builds or Lightsworn based decks, such as Chaos Dragons. If you send a Light Pulsar and they're loyal to the graveyard, the Lila never gets to mill or pop a card. The Light Pulsar, not so much of a loss really, because it seems to bring it back. Agents is a third that they can be good against. Also, if you just want to leave him in defense mode, he can be equally as annoying because Rabbit decks won't really be able to get over him, even with like a Forbidden Lance or something. Other notable exclusions include Miserin the String Djinn, which I presume he ran only because of his lack of an Acid Golem. Now in Europe he's not actually legal yet, so I can't use him, but he could. Finally, we've got Guy Knight, the Force of Earth. Basically, it's because he's Earth, and he can sync him with Xian Squire into the likes of Naturia Landois and other level 7s. Right, so finally onto his side deck. He's got 3 Reckless Greeds, 2 Fossil Dynapack Cephalo, 2 Shadow Imprisoning Mirrors, 2 Forbidden Chalices, 1 Mask of Restrict, double DB Crow, the 3rd Max C, and 2 Ultimate Offerings. The first thing that stands out for me with the side deck are the 3 Reckless Greeds. Now for me, a side deck card should always directly address some issue in the meta, or an individual card, such as Rescue Rabbit, or an Inzektor card, or something. You know, it shouldn't just be a generic way to draw into more stuff. And I can understand why he might use it. I mean, he could use it against the likes of Dark World and Windups when they try and get rid of his hand, but it's not a foolproof solution against those decks. I can also understand why he might use it in mirror matches if he wants to outswarm his fellow 6-Sam opponent. Fossil Dyna kind of follows the same rules. If you're in a mirror match against your opponent, you'll basically want to get rid of their swarm stuff before you can swarm yourself. And a 6-Sam's the one thing that they needed was an effect negator, and in the structure deck they did not get one. So basically the best alternative you can have is trying to stop their swarm and in turn swarm yourself. Shadow Imprisoning Mirror is basically against Dark Worlds, Inzektors, on occasion Chaos Dragons, but not really. So it's a pretty decent side. I don't know why anyone would choose not to side this card. Forbidden Chalices, not the most predictable side, but just as effective. You're talking about negating stuff like Raikou, really annoying effects, and just other face-up effects like Dark Iron Dragon, Inzektor Dragonfly, Wind-Up Carrier and Zen Mighty, and other stuff like that. And I don't know why more people don't run Forbidden Chalice, because I personally love the card. Anyway, for Mask of Restrict, you're basically looking at Erratic Dragons. It's the only deck I can think of that is tribute heavy. DD Crow, while a conventional and predictable side, is still just as useful against the likes of Inzektors, Dark Worlds, and Chaos Dragons. The 3rd Max C doesn't really require an explanation, and as for the double Ultimate Offerings, for me they follow the same kind of rules as he followed with the Reckless Greeds. They're more so helping his own deck rather than shutting down an opponent's deck, which I don't necessarily agree with. But hey, maybe being unconventional is the key here. Maybe that's actually what clinched him the win. I don't know. It's certainly a possibility. I mean, people are hardly going to expect you to side in Reckless Greeds against the likes of Inzektors and a bunch of other stuff. Maybe he did it more against Windups. But either way, it must have been successful, and I'd like to say congratulations to him again. And yeah, that's it for the analysis, guys. Okay, that's it for the video today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to comment, rate, and subscribe as always. Let me know what you think of this build. I, for one, think it's pretty unconventional. He's got some pretty original tech cards in there, which may have clinched him the win, particularly Compulsory Evacuation Device and Xian Squire. So keep a lookout for more content from me. I am Weevil YouTuber, and I am signing out.